Yesterday on Blue Sky, we had a conversation about the role of public art, and we are continuing that conversation about art today. But rather than public, we're talking about the most personal art you can get. That's right, it is tattoo season. And when you're at the beach or at the pool, you can see just how prevalent tattoo art has become. I'll bet many of you listening right now have a tattoo, whether we can see it or not. And whether you got it just because you like the way it looks, or maybe it's got some special meaning, we want to hear from you. Now, we are joined by three tattoo artists today. In our Saskatoon studio, we're joined by Chauntel Garand, known by most as a Mouse. And joining me in our Regina studio, we have CJ Pannell, and she runs her own shop, True Dark Tattoo, and Stacey Fayant. Stacey is Métis, Cree, Saulteaux, and French, and a member of Pepeekisis First Nation. She's an Indigenous cultural tattoo practitioner. Welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mouse, let's start with you. How did you first get interested in tattooing?
I was part of that generation that I guess our eyes were opened as far as tattooing when it started to become a thing on TV, you know, the Miami Ink, the LA Ink, all of that kind of stuff. I was hitting like 13 years old and I thought it was so cool, so edgy, so unique. And I've always been an artist my whole life. So, I mean, it was something that once I got into my brain, it was something I had to do since I was, like a preteen.
How old were you when you got your first tattoo?
I was actually 19. I did wait to be
You waited
an
6
adult.
years.
I waited. I knew it was a waiting game, something that, when the time was right, the time was right.
What did you get?
I got an anchor and a quote.
And do you still have that anchor and quote on you?
I still do.
And do you still like it?
I do. Artistically, I probably would have done something a little different with it. But, it's that first tattoo. It's something that is still special to me.
CJ, what about you? Why did you get into tattooing?
I've always really liked art, and I remember seeing tattoos on other people and just really loving how it looked. And once I got my first tattoo, I liked how it made me feel about my body, so I kind of approached tattooing in that way, that I like the customer service aspect of it, which is kind of a rarity.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy, my interactions with my clients.
When you say you liked how it made you feel about your body, what do you mean?
Like just dealing with, body dysmorphia, things like that, right? Not feeling confident in my own skin. And getting that first tattoo, it made me feel like I wanted to show that part of my body off. I felt proud of it.
What did you get?
I got sheet music across my feet.
And how much did that hurt on your feet?
Well, at the time, I had no point of reference, so I built it up in my head. Most people, you build it up, you think it's going to be way worse than it is. And so when I got it, I was like, oh, this isn't that bad at all. But then as I got more tattoos, then I realized, the feet are actually really painful.
So how long have you been doing tattoos?
About 8.5 years.
Does it feel like it's been that long?
No. I still feel like I'm a beginner sometimes.
Well, probably with the challenges that come with each piece of artwork and customer, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, as an artist, you should always be striving to improve, right? Mm-hmm. So I always have these goals ahead of me of where I want to be. And though, I'm proud of the work that I'm doing now, there's a lot of pieces I'm really excited about, but I'm always excited to learn more, and I'm hungry to learn more.
Stacey, you describe yourself as a cultural tattoo practitioner. I've seen your work. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What does it mean to be a cultural practitioner?
So a lot of people don't realize that Indigenous people throughout the world really have a tradition of tattooing or marking the skin. I didn't know that my people tattooed until I was an adult, and someone posted about it on Facebook. So I don't tattoo as my job. It's a cultural practice. I tattoo in exchange for a gift. And I really bring it back to help bring back our culture, bring back our community, to reintroduce healthy touch to each other and caring for each other, and to bring back all the aspects of what tattooing was prior to colonization and is now as we revitalize it.
What did you get for your first cultural tattoo on yourself?
So when I found out about cultural tattooing, there wasn't anyone here in Saskatchewan who did that yet. And so I did a lot of research and everything, and I met...
As you should.
Yeah. So the two types of tattooing that were practiced here prior to colonization were hand poke technique and skin stitch technique. And so I did find somebody who practiced hand poke. She wasn't Indigenous, but she agreed to do one for me. So I kind of think of that as my first cultural tattoo. And it was a wild rose to represent my parents and growing up and being rooted to the earth and being rooted to my family.
For people who don't know what hand poke and hand stitched means compared to not the traditional, I guess, compared to the more popularized needle machine, how do those two work?
So a hand poke tattoo is exactly as it sounds. You're just like slowly poking holes into the skin. There's a bit more technique to it than that, but you dip your needle in the ink and hand poke it. So I use the same exact needles that a tattooist in a shop or using a machine would use. I just don't put them in a machine, but they're still sterilized in the same way. They're still just as safe, and I use the same type of ink for that. Skin stitch tattoo, I'll tattoo anyone, even though it's Indigenous cultural practice. I'll tattoo anyone with hand poke. Skin stitch, we just do Indigenous people because it's special. And we do ask other artists who aren't Indigenous to try and stay away from doing that. So we use a needle and a really short piece of thread that have been sterilized through an autoclave. And same type of ink. We use the highest quality ink we can for that, especially because it's being stitched through the skin. And the thread doesn't stay in the skin at all. It's just the carrier for that ink.
It sounds like those are much more time-consuming.
Yes, very.
What are those interactions with people like? Because I know from my own experience getting tattoos, even with a machine, you're sitting in a chair for 2, 4, 6 hours, depending on size, pain tolerance, etc. But this sounds much more personal and also, not to use the word tedious, but it would take a significant more amount of time if you're using just a single needle at a time.
Yeah. So my whole process, I say takes a lot longer than getting an appointment at a shop. When people contact me, there's a lot of sort of counseling that happens between us. If we don't meet in person, then at least that's done through messages of some sort to figure out what's appropriate. And I ask people get homework from me. So they have to talk to family or people they trust in their community. And then the day itself, I ask people to give me the whole day. So whether I'm tattooing something that I think will take 2 hours or whether I think it's something that'll take longer, I ask them to give me the whole day because that is a part of the ceremony, really, is this is your tattoo day and this is your time to be with me and for us to really focus on you and on what the tattoo is for and everything. So we'll share a meal, we'll hang out and laugh and hopefully have a good time. And then if we're done and you have a lot of day left in the day, then that's like a gift, right? You don't often get a gift of time anymore. So.
No, that sounds very relaxing too and something that you do for yourself.
Yeah. It is a lot for me or for any tattooist, I'm sure. So yeah, after I've finished a tattoo, it's nice to have a little time to relax afterwards.
I want to get to how you got into cultural tattooing in just a minute, but I want to bring in callers as well because we do want to hear from people about their tattoos, the backstory, and if you have questions as well for these ladies, please do give us a call, 1-800-716-2221, or you can email us bluesky@cbc.ca. If you are emailing us and you're going to tell us about a tattoo, please include a photo if you can so that we can see what you're talking about. Barry in Lorburn has a question. Barry, go ahead.
I met a guy last week with a very detailed black tattoo on his arm. I asked him why he didn't do it in color because it would have stood out more. And he said color tattoos, after a few years, and he said 3 to 5, the colors tend to bleed into each other, and it makes a kind of not a very detailed looking tattoo. And that quite surprised me because a lot of people do get them done in color. And I had anticipated that. So I'd like to know from your guests if their comments on that fellow's comment that he gave me.
Okay. Mouse, I'm going to give that one to you.
I tend to tell a lot of my clients that color does fade a lot more than black and gray, especially more with sun exposure. I wouldn't particularly say that the colors bleed in together and kind of create a blur or a mess unless the design wasn't done to an appropriate size. The best rule I use is if you can't read it 10 feet away, you can't read it 10 years from now. So basically, black is the most high contrast that we have. So that's why there is a little bit more, I guess, longevity with black and gray, as opposed to color where, again, it depends all on the placement of the body, the sun exposure, and how the artist applied the color too. But general rule, color can fade more than bleeding together, I would say. Anything from either of you two on that you want to add?
No, that was awesome. Yep, that's exactly
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Mouse, do you have a preference on tattooing in color or in black and white? I know every artist has their favorite style, depending on line work and all of those things, which could be a whole other show on itself, getting into all the different styles of tattoos. But do you have a preference in the kind of art and color that you work with yourself?
I like to be somebody who tries to do a little bit of everything and make it unique to myself. So for myself, I enjoy a lot of very bold, vibrant color, and then I like to do a lot of very realistic black and gray. So I like both. I can't decide. I'd say black and gray is sometimes a little bit quicker. Color takes a little bit longer, but I mean, preferably myself, I love both color, neo-traditional, and then black and gray realism.
What about you, CJ?
It depends on the subject matter for sure. But yeah, I find myself bouncing back and forth quite a bit. I like doing pieces, just like Mouse said, that has contrast. So I tend to focus on neo-Japanese style. And so I like using color in the subject matter and then black and gray for the background, giving it that nice contrast. Yep.
I love doing all of it. But
what do you gravitate towards? Like if you had to choose, if you had a whole bunch of clients in front of you and you had to pick based on the art, which art would you go towards?
I suppose color. I do some beadwork tattoos that are, they're kind of like colored dots, right? Mm-hmm. So those are always they're stressful because like color is a lot more work, as the others said, and you have to like be strategic when you're doing color. You have to go from darkest to lightest and everything. So it's a little bit more stressful, but it always turns out so gorgeous.
Yep.
Let's start with, Stacey, with your tattoo journey into becoming the artist, because did you start with the gun into traditional tattooing, or do you even use a gun for tattooing?
No, I've never picked up a gun.
Weird choice of words on my part, but you know what I mean.
A machine.
Yeah.
I actually was an artist before I started tattooing. Most of my art has to do with identity and talking about colonialism and healing and stuff like that. So, and family especially. So when I heard about tattooing, that our people tattooed, I knew I needed to be a part of it. But prior to that, I didn't have an urge to be a tattooist. I didn't have any interest. I had one tattoo. But I knew I needed to be a part of the revitalization of our tattooing, whether that be as an artist or, just trying to help get it going here or whatever. So I did a lot of research and I found Earthline Tattoo Collective. They're not together anymore. They're not teaching anymore. But at that time, they were teaching really, really small groups of people.
And where was that?
So they taught they had two schools in BC, and then the school I went to was in Halifax, and then they had another school here in Regina the year after that. So it was a very focused 5-week program. And when I went, there was only 3 of us that graduated, I guess.
Yep.
So very focused on, and it was the type of thing that I especially felt I needed because I really am nervous about, health and safety and stuff like that. So I didn't want to be hurting people. It's
considered a really good goal. Let's just get that for sure.
A goal you assume everyone has, but and it is medicine for our people. So to go in there and hurt people would be horrible. So our program focused on health and safety, on the highest standards of tattooing health and safety in the industry, and then also talking a lot about cultural appropriation, a lot about how do we, as a small group of people, bring this back in a good way. And we had international teachers come. So it was a really amazing program and continues to be an amazing support group as we continue revitalizing.
Do you have a mentor now, or are you a mentor to other people?
I consider my teachers forever my teachers, right? So I was taught by Dion Kazis, Amy Malbuff, Jordan Bennett, and Amber Lee John, and a bunch of other international artists. And then now, once Earthline stopped teaching, Dion said to us that it was now, he now expected his students to start teaching and that we were ready for it. And that's really what I was waiting for, right? I didn't want to teach before somebody said you're ready. So when he said that, I felt it was a responsibility. So I do have 3 women that I've taught here, and hopefully it just gets bigger and bigger.
Do you understand how special that is?
Sometimes.
That is really special to have that community and for it to grow organically. Yeah. And you're busy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, quite busy. So I always tell people, they contact me and I always say, well, I have it will be at least 2 years before I get to you. But I do have these women that I've trained and they're ready to start tattooing. So that's a huge help.
CJ,
yes.
You have your own shop.
Yes.
You apprenticed for how long?
The actual apprenticeship before I got my hands on a machine was just over a year. But I wouldn't call that the full apprenticeship because they didn't tell me I was apprenticing. They told me I was just working the desk until I could earn the apprenticeship.
No. And did you apprentice under a woman or under a man?
I apprenticed under a man. So there wasn't a lot of options when I started tattooing. And so I had to wait about 2 years before I even got the opportunity to work the desk. And then from there I had the traditional apprenticeship that you have to clean the shop, book appointments for all the other artists, draw all the time, scrub tubes. I didn't get to learn how to make needles, which is something I still want to do. But yeah, I had to do lots of like the old school traditional ways.
Intern grunt work.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So when you had the opportunity to open your own space from your own experiences, what was important to you to do your own way that you took from those experiences previously?
Like function and flow. So a workspace that was easy to navigate. But one of my biggest priorities is my clients, right? So I want to be as accommodating as possible in my shop. So I have a TV, I've got snacks, I've got, comfortable accommodations for them. I have an upgraded table that has like a really thick cushion on it. It has a higher weight capacity too, which is very important. So I can accommodate more types of people, right? It's wheelchair accessible. And I always try to check in with my clients and make sure that their needs are being met so that they're comfortable in my studio. So if that means turning the music down, turning the heat up, whatever it might be, I wanted to have them as my focus.
When it comes to supporting other women and other mentorship, are you mentoring others or do you have other people under you?
Right now, kind of. I never set out to take anyone on anytime soon. When I learned, my teacher told me that you should always look for someone that has a minimum 10 years experience. So I'm waiting till I get closer to that 10 years before. But I did recently hire someone a couple months ago that is requiring some guidance. So we're working through that right now.
Awesome. Okay. We're going to continue this conversation in just a moment, but David Shield is standing by in Saskatoon with a news update. Hey, David.
Hi, Sam. Indigenous Services Canada says people evacuated from the remote community of Fond du Lac are returning home. Last week, wildfire smoke forced about 250 people to be flown to Saskatoon. As of this morning, there are currently 42 active wildfires in the province. Shelby Newkirk is getting ready to compete at the 2024 Paralympics in Paris. The Saskatoon swimmer was diagnosed with a neurological disorder at 13 and decided to start swimming to pursue her athletic dreams. She uses mobility aids on land, but in the water she's able to compete at a world-class level. And a Métis woman is getting ready to film a documentary on her great-great-uncle. Edouard Beaupré was known as the Willow Bunch Giant and was a famous circus performer. When he died in 1904, he was more than 8 feet tall and was one of the tallest people ever alive. And I'll have a full newscast for you coming up at 1 o'clock.
All right. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
That's the CBC's David Shield with a look at news stories we're following this hour. He'll be back at 1 o'clock with a complete newscast. We're talking today about art. Yesterday, public art. Today, private art, tattoos that you have, tattoos maybe that you want, or tattoos that you have questions about. You can give us a call, 1-800-716-2221, or you can email us, bluesky@cbc.ca. We have 3 tattoo artists with me today in Saskatoon, Mouse, or Chauntel Garand. We have CJ Pannell and Stacey Fayant in with me in Regina, and we're talking all about different kinds of tattoo art today. Mouse, we know a lot of people get tattoos for all kinds of reasons, happy reasons, sad reasons, but I think there's a lot of memorial tattoos out there. How do you, as an artist, help people deal with grief in a way that you don't take it home with you every time?
That was actually a lesson that I had to learn firsthand the hard way. I did 2 tattoos in a day that were memorial back to back, and I didn't at the moment think that it would affect me as much as it did. The first lady, it was just a rose tattoo. I didn't know a lot of the backstory, and then when I had tattooed her, she told me her husband got her a rose on their first anniversary, 2 roses on their second anniversary, and they made it up to 20 roses before he passed. And then right after that was a very close client of mine who lost a pet, and it was a very, very heavy day that I didn't really kind of realize how much as an artist or, as people, we really pick up on those kind of energies. And I really value being that person that people can come to and talk to openly and feel comfortable around. And I remember calling my fiance after work and I was like, I can't do this many memorial tattoos too close. I definitely need to space this out and have those kind of a little bit breathing room in between, because it really, truly, truly affects you. So I think for me, moving forward, I really learned the importance of valuing my energy, working with my energy, and learning how to ground and properly release all of these energies that we pick up, working so close to the body, touching people in a very vulnerable position where they're, uncomfortable, they're experiencing pain. And I didn't quite realize how much it was affecting me until that day. And since, I space out the memorial tattoos a little bit more so that I don't have to bring that energy into another client. And then at the end of the day, I do a lot of meditation, and that was a big thing that really helped me kind of ground and preserve my energy in the right way so that I can be more valuable to my clients without being, my cup half full.
Stacey and CJ are nodding along with you as you're saying all of these things.
Very real thing.
Stacey, what would you add to that?
It goes back to me. I generally only do 1 tattoo a day when I'm doing a tattoo. A lot of the tattoos I'm doing are about healing from the traumas of colonization or just life. So it's a whole day with someone, and we share time and stories, and all of that is their experience of that tattoo. So you have to be there for them, right? You can't throw down your tools and go for a cry or whatever, right? So you're there for them for that experience and to support them through it. And so that when they look at that tattoo after, they have good memories of what happened. And you're doing it in a good way for them in your heart. And so, yeah, when it's finished, you do need to decompress and take care of yourself.
CJ, when people come in for those kind of tattoos, do you have to like hype yourself up for what you know is coming, or do you have to prep your own headspace for those kinds of things?
I usually don't think about it until it's happening, and then it just kind of hits me like a ton of bricks. Yeah. I try to just listen and be supportive. People have a tendency to share a lot when they're in pain. They become very vulnerable. So even when it's not a memorial tattoo, there can be a lot of things that are brought up and spoken about that you're not necessarily prepared for. And so, yeah, being able to decompress after is super important because you're not always ready for it when it's about to happen.
My aunt was a hairdresser and used to have a sign above her chair that said something about, you know, the hair, you pay for the haircut, but the counseling session is free. And that's what you guys are making me think about here is how much is shared with you. Let's go to the phones because we do have some callers on the line. Heather is in Moose Jaw. She has a question about building on others' work. Heather, go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, I was wondering if I were to come in to see any of your guests for a tattoo, and the request would be to build on something that I already have. It has a lot of personal symbolism in it. Sort of how would your guests feel about it, or what would their approach be to expanding on somebody else's work?
Is there one of you that feels particularly passionate about this?
I can answer.
Go ahead, CJ, go ahead.
It just kind of depends person to person. So I like to always meet up and chat with the client and discuss what changes are being made, what additions are being made, and I like to see the work because at the end of the day, like it is my work that I'm putting out there, and we don't really like pay for advertisement. So if I don't feel like the two art styles are going to go together, then, you know, I may suggest someone else. But for the most part, like I have no problem adding on to other pieces because I think of it as like a collaboration and you own your body. So, you know, if you feel that you want to add some flowers next to a piece some other artist did, do it.
Most, what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, pretty much exactly the same thing. I've never had any hesitation with adding onto an existing piece as long as, again, both of the styles kind of mash, will go well together. And if I don't believe I'm the right artist for the job, I have no problem handing a client to an artist who can do that and execute it best for them. But as long as, again, kind of looking at the piece, there's so many different things that factor in, you know, how much room there is around the existing piece as well, how many more elements you want to add. It's a long process, but I personally don't have any problem adding on to a piece or taking a look at it.
Stacey?
Yeah, usually the only times I'll say no to something is if it's like way too large for hand poke tattooing. You know, sometimes people are like, "Can you do this whole sleeve?" And I'm like, "No, I can't." But here's some artists, because there are Indigenous cultural practitioners who do use machines, so it's not the tool that makes us who we are, right? So, yeah, I would always look at it first and talk to them about what that would mean, putting them together, and why is it important. And it doesn't have to be like philosophically important or anything like that, but just, you know, talking about it is really important.
Heather, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your call. If you have a question or you want to share a tattoo with us, 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Barry in Green Lake wants to talk about a memorial tattoo. Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm a person that never ever thought I would get a tattoo or never give it any consideration to get one. But my dog, who's my best friend, I had to put to sleep about 4 years ago, prematurely, I would say. He wasn't that old. And I miss him every day, and I never saw it twice. I went and got a tattoo of my dog from a photograph that I had done in Saskatoon here, and I get to look at him every day, and I think about him every day because he was my best friend, and that is the only reason why I ever got one. I didn't think I would, but I did. Barry,
what kind of dog was he?
Oh, man. Everybody asks me that all the time, and I can't answer it because he was 3 different breeds.
Which 3?
Well, that I can't know either.
He was a mutt?
Well, no. He was a very intelligent dog, and my best friend, and boy, he let you know if you were getting too close to his dad. He'd show his teeth and growl, and that's how our relationship was. And I just had to get one. The guy put even the colored red band on the around where his collar is there that he always wore. That was in the photo. And
what was his name?
Max.
Does it help having Max with you, the grieving process?
Oh, yeah. And every time I have a shower, Max hated water, so every time I have a shower, I soap him first, and I rinse him first, and I dry him first. But it's high up on my shoulder, like nobody ever sees it unless I want to show it to you. So.
Well, Barry, thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Instant tears in my eyes with that story.
So sweet.
I understand now when you guys say it like affects you instantly.
I got like goosebumps all over my body hearing that. Just the love in his voice. Oh.
Yeah,
carrying his best buddy with him everywhere he goes.
I love people share their photos and things like that. And even though you're only using one for the tattoo, they'll send you a whole bunch so you get to see their fur babies.
Is it hard doing those realistic tattoos when you're trying to share? I mean, the face of someone important or an animal and getting that likeness. I mean, we've all seen the fails on the internet.
I don't normally touch them. Portraits aren't something I'm really interested in. Mm-hmm. I'll take them on a case-to-case basis. Like I've done, I like to do the pet memorials, but I've only done a couple actual people. That's more mouse.
Yeah, I grew up as a portrait artist. I actually didn't really know how to draw out of my head creatively, cartoonish, illustrative until getting into tattooing. My roots are very much since preschool I took art classes, and it was very much still life, and then portrait work. I got into charcoal, pencil, crayon, and then like for me, portraits, as long as I have a good piece to work, a good picture for reference, that's one of my happiest days. I love working on portraits, and they're one of my favorite style pieces to work on for sure.
How do you not cry all day? I have tears in my eyes from a 3-second story.
It later, I put myself in a bathroom and just cry it out and then go to bed.
Amazing. If other people want to share a story like Barry did about a special tattoo, you can call us 1-800-716-2221 or email us bluesky@cbc.ca. I wish Barry would have sent us a picture because I would love to see what Max looks like. So now, as we go through, tattoos are way more popular than they were even when we were all much younger and getting our first tattoos. Are there people that you would ever talk out of getting a tattoo that have come in and say, like, I really, really want this, and you're just like, you're not in the right headspace for this? Is that a conversation you've ever had to have with people?
I've had people come in and say, I don't know what I want, I just want a tattoo. And that's when I typically send them away and say, hey, like, come back to me with a couple ideas that we can choose from. Because especially when it's their first tattoo, that's on you forever. I want them to actually like give it some thought than just having some ink that they're going to look at later and it means nothing to them.
Mouse, what about you?
Same thing. I actually just got a flashback from working in like a street shop. And I remember this individual came in and he was like, I need a name tattoo right now on my neck. And like names are something that like I do not believe in giving a piece of yourself away in that aspect unless it is a memorial or your child. And right away, my kind of like red flags went up and I was like, I'm not sure we have time. What's the situation? And he's like, I just got into a huge fight with my girlfriend. I need to show that I love her. I'm like, buddy, I am so sorry you're going through this, but I think you need to decompress in a different way. This is entirely permanent.
What about you, Stacey? Because your tattooing is so much different.
Yeah, so I never have those situations where somebody's just at me and has just had an argument. So kind of the opposite of like, if somebody comes to me and they say they just want a tattoo, they don't know what, I'm always very open to those conversations because it's going to be a conversation first, no matter what people are coming to me for. So often when they say that, it's not, I just want a tattoo. It's that they want the experience of having our cultural tradition done. And a lot of our tattoos were coming of age tattoos or identity tattoos that showed who you were, who you belonged with, or that showed an important thing that had happened or that you had done in your life. So we'll talk through that and talk about what the experience of getting a cultural tattoo, why is it important, and what is it going to be for them? So that process, that conversation, I have the luxury of having with them.
You don't have the panic.
I don't have the panic. No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, but there are people who will get a tattoo out of a gumball machine. Like we've seen those where you just put the quarter in the machine. Yep. And do you do those at your shop?
Well, I have one, but I haven't filled it with designs yet. But I do enjoy spontaneous tattoos in that way when there's kind of set designs, because when you say you just want a design, you can pull something off Pinterest or whatever, right? I don't know that person personally. I don't know if they're gonna like that Pinterest tattoo, but that gumball machine, I know I at least like those designs. I can sell someone on that, right?
Right. Yep. And are those typically smaller tattoos? Yeah,
it depends shop to shop. They're kind of priced for the size. So I'm looking to do ones that take maybe an hour at the most, maybe an hour and a half.
Most, is that something that you do?
I haven't done the gumball machine, but I do. I absolutely love flash. And I think, that's part of the experience of getting tattooed. And especially, I do love the spontaneous tattoos as long as you are in a good, happy space to get something fun, that the experience of getting tattooed is just as important as the artwork, at least for myself. And I'll always say that. And having that experience of that get what you get or those flash tattoos, those end up being very meaningful for myself and my client because of that experience, that random meeting and having that, that moment that we get to share and have a good time and enjoy it. Tattoos should be fun still, too.
It's not always sad.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be always sad.
I want to talk to you guys about tattoo conventions and traveling for tattoos, because that is also something that has grown immensely. It's an opportunity to show your work off to a totally different city, totally different crowd, and also to give tattoos live in front of an audience, which is something typically that you don't get to do in a shop, especially coming out of a pandemic where you weren't even allowed to bring another person into the room with you to get a piece of artwork done. Mouse, I'll start with you. Are you someone who likes to do conventions?
Absolutely. I love every bit of traveling, the networking, meeting other artists, to building clientele and, again, sharing that experience with different people everywhere. Actually, me and CJ are heading out to Winnipeg. I'm taking off tomorrow morning. We're sharing a booth at the convention this weekend, and I love it. I think it's part of being a tattooer that's very important to me.
Are you a booker, or do you let people walk up and just get?
I normally book. This weekend, I'm just doing walk-ups, flash. I kind of want to have fun with it. I haven't done that kind of style for a convention since my beginning years of tattooing. So I've always booked for every show, and I've booked very far in advance. And I'm leaving my schedule opening. I'm letting the fates decide what I'm doing. I'm bringing a bunch of artwork, and I'm just going to have fun.
TJ, what about you?
I do a mix of both. I like being able to take walk-ups, and I like that sort of that chance of whether you're going to wrangle someone in to get the tattoo, because you have to be a salesman.
Because there's so many of you.
Exactly. But people are there with the purpose to get tattooed. So if you can manage to wrangle one of these people that are going up and down the booths, it's just a really exciting experience. But I do like to have a couple pieces that I'm looking forward to pre-booked for the weekend, and then I just kind of fill my spots around
What
there.
are you looking forward to tattooing on the weekend?
I only have one thing booked, and it is a face hugger from Alien.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
Did not expect that. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not that.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it.
Awesome.
When it comes to traditional tattoos, there's also a place for those in conventions. Is that something that you go to or have interest in being a part of down the road?
I haven't. I am not a huge traveler. But we do have cultural gatherings, tattoo gatherings, and I hope to go to one. Eventually, I know lots of people who go to the tattoo gatherings, and they're just a wonderful place. And they happen all over the world. So it would be wonderful to like go to New Zealand and participate in that. I have tattooed in public in art galleries as a part of revitalizing and helping people learn about tattooing. So, and people always ask me, is it hard to tattoo with people watching or in public or like right in a gallery space? And I'm like, I just zone out. I don't even really notice. Like and people will come up and ask me questions. They're like, is it okay if we talk to you? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. It's fun and wonderful. Yeah.
What zone do you get into when you're tattooing? Do you listen to music? Do you
No.
What's your preference?
If there's music on, it's fine with me. But if I'm in control, I like to have quiet so that I can hear if the person is saying something to me or that sort of thing. I'm just very focused on their body and what's happening with their body and how we're working through that, So it is a lot about that touch. It's so personal to be allowed to touch somebody in that way, especially after the pandemic, right? And so I talk about it as love, as care, right? And it might be care for somebody like a cousin of mine or a relative, but like if it's somebody I've never met, how beautiful is that to be allowed to care for somebody in that way?
Mm-hmm. Mouse, if you have your choice of what you're doing while you're tattooing, is it music? Is it TV? Is it silence? Like, how do you get in the zone?
I typically listen to music, but it's like a background thing. I don't mind chatting with my clients while I'm tattooing. I'll sometimes tell them, hey, I just need to pay attention a little bit more because my focus is all on the tattooing. I can hone in for hours at a time just working on the piece, but I like a little bit of background music. I don't like headphones because, again, I do like to talk to my client or at least be able to, if they say, hey, can I run to the washroom or something? Like, I like music. I've listened to podcasts while getting or while tattooing too. If my client is also somebody who's very quiet and and I'll ask them to what they prefer to listen to because again, it's their comfort. But I can tattoo in silence for hours and days, just lost in my own mind and in the piece.
Yeah. CJ, you already talked about the TV and the snacks and all the things you have in your studio. But if you set it up for your preference, how do you get in the zone?
It depends on my mood, honestly. Usually it's music with the TV playing in the background, like with the volume all the way down. And then as I'm turning to dip my ink or whatever, turning away from the client, I'll look up for a second. But yeah, just like Mouse had mentioned and Stacey a bit too, you kind of get in your own head. Mm-hmm. And so no matter what's going on around me, I tend to just kind of sing my own songs and listen to my own thoughts.
As you're all telling me these stories, I think of the last tattoo I got, and it's with a woman who's from Saskatchewan out in BC. I asked so many questions and probably totally ruined her because as I'm asking you these, I did all of this while getting tell me about your background, tell me about this, tell me about that. And I'm sure by the end of it, she was like, oh my God, please stop asking questions. But for me, it's so cool to hear about how you guys got to be who you are because you're all well known in your circles for being good at what you do. And in a time where there are so many tattoo artists, how do you pick one? Like, how do you pick who is the right person to put this very permanent thing on your body? in a time where you can also technically get them removed, because before, getting it removed was not really an option. You could kind of cover it up-ish. So I think it's really cool that the three of you have these strong communities around you, and that you have this space to do this, and then to also mentor other people so that it continues, because tattoo shops weren't always necessarily a comfortable space for a lot of people. CJ, I know that we've talked a little bit about this, making it accessible, making it inclusive, and that's really important to you. I'm like, and now I've gone on a spiel. We're coming up on the end of the show, but if there is someone who is really wanting a tattoo but hasn't been able to get up the guts to do it, what would you tell them, CJ?
Look for someone that you get along with, that you vibe with, Don't just, obviously look for art that you are attracted to, that it's a style that you really like, you could see yourself wearing. But go and sit down and meet that person too, because we've all talked about the experience, and the experience is a big part of it. And you could get tattooed by the best artists in the whole world. If you had a poor experience, you're not going to reflect on that tattoo in a positive way. Mm-hmm. So, meet the person that you want to get their art and see if you guys connect. There's so many different artists that do so many different styles of art. And so you can find people that do similar art styles to what you like, and you'll find someone that you get along with too and have a really enjoyable experience.
Where do people find you on the socials?
You can find me at wolfsblood.tdt, and that's on Instagram, or my shop, which is True Dark Tattoo.
Okay, Mouse, where do people find you if they have not already?
I am at Mouse Tattoos on both Instagram and TikTok.
And TikTok?
Yeah,
I
try.
I'll follow you right after the show. And Stacey, if people want to find you, how do they do that?
They can. Well, apparently you can Google me, and so much stuff comes up, which makes me nervous. But
all good things.
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook, Stacey Fayant, and on Instagram, Stacey Fayant. Usually they're private accounts. People can friend me, but the best method is to send me a message and tell me why you're friending me. Otherwise, I just assume you're a random person.
Yes, a random bot trying to take your Facebook account. Ladies, thank you so much for this conversation today.